Hello and welcome to Inside Music Curation. We're the team at Feed Media Group here to talk all things music curation. I am joined by my esteemed colleagues from our music curation team. And today we're going to talk a little bit about global music strategy. What could be scarier than international music licensing? So we thought we would talk about this on the eve of Halloween today. If for any business that's attempted to license music across borders or internationally, you may realize that you stumble into a few challenges along the way, whether it's rights, catalogs, getting clearances on the publishing side, the recording side, the rights organizations. It's really no small feat to try to license music across borders. However, it's a really important strategy. If you're a digital business today, chances are you are looking for users not just in one geographic area. You want to welcome a worldwide community into your app. And so global music strategy is incredibly important for digital businesses today. And part of that strategy is music. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Stens, do you want to kind of elaborate on maybe some of the challenges that folks might encounter as they think, oh, I'm going to expand my app. I'm going to go out. I just need to find some great music that I can stream to people in multiple countries. If they haven't tried to do this before, what they might expect to find.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, a lot of the heavy lifting I don't have to do because thank God I've got an incredible colleague in the music affairs team of Feed and also content ops professional. It's licensing. I mean, in a nutshell, it's licensing. We are able to stream major label music in regions including the United States and Canada and Mexico and Australia. Although even the licensing for those is very complicated, and then you get outside of those specific regions and it gets to be crazy town. There's just a lot of licenses that you need. And for anyone who's done any kind of music licensing, you always have to have the rights for at least two stakeholders. You need to have for the master side, you need to have the rights for that, and then for the publishing side. And so a lot of times there's publishing splits. So if there's more than one writer, you'll have multiple writers. So that can turn into like four stakeholders. And then when you get into multiple regions, you're talking about different publishing organizations that are in charge of overseeing the royalties and payouts. And just as one example of this, because we've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I actually wrote a blog article about it, that if you want to stream in Europe, and obviously that is simultaneously a very complicated subsection of countries and a highly attractive, highly relevant one, you need to have deals with over 30 collective management organizations. So it can get into a very huge amount very quickly. And so what we do at Feed, and we have a ton of experience with, is whether it's major label or high quality independent catalog, figuring out from a licensing standpoint what is the most appropriate music to serve in those areas.
Yeah. So to summarize, even if you're looking to license one song, right, you've got the recording side, the publishing side, you could have, as many as a dozen individual rights holders that you need to negotiate with. And then when you take that across borders, you've got a different rights organization or multiples in each of those countries. So it really adds up quickly. And the ability to tap into a pre-cleared catalog like what we're working with at Feed FM definitely gives you a leg up and helps speed up the process, which trying to negotiate on your own could definitely take a long period of time to get all of those deals done. And you talked, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, one of the things that we've found as a company, and we've been doing this for 10 years, and almost that entire time we've been streaming music, not only in the United States, but internationally, is that there is, a big need for high quality music that one can stream anywhere. And, we have a ton of expertise and experience of going into a variety of independent, label music that we're licensed to use in high quality production catalogs. But it's still a bit of a patchwork quilt of music, even available when you have an exceptional, two-person team working on licensing. So we actually started 3 years ago to commission our own music, and Mike actually oversees that. It's called Feed Originals, and we have a lot of experience with, customer X, Y, and Z is streaming, Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, and Megan the Stallion in the United States and Australia, but they want to do that type of thing elsewhere. And so, Mike, can you talk a little bit about Feed Originals and how we use that to the benefit of the global strategy that we offer to all of our partners?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been building this catalog for a little over 2 years now. We've got close to 5,000 tracks. And what we're doing is we are commissioning these tracks. We're having the producers follow very specific stylistic guidelines that we give them. And it's helps to really lock in the music for the specific use case, right? So if we've got a customer who, has some, high intensity interval training type, classes that they need to put music into, we've got the music created specifically for that. Or, if it's a wellness app who needs music for sleep induction, we've given the instructions to our producers to create music in this specific way that's science backed, and it's created for this use. So it's not just we're not just collecting random tracks and making them available as like a hodgepodge of a catalog. These are specifically created tracks.
And what is it like to curate some of those stations, right? When you are, again, we're talking about global music strategy, and we know that there's going to be limitations on licenses. So while you might be able to use your preferred track, maybe it's a major label track in one place, how are you curating around those, and how do you work to build those stations using the combination of Feed Originals and maybe indie labels that we have agreements with?
I mean, I'll hand that to Claire quickly because it's a quality control exercise, right? I mean, we actually have a very, very high quantity of tracks that we can use globally, but then we have to like really parse it down. And there's few people at Feed that have as much experience with that as Claire. Do you want to talk a little bit about what goes into that whole exercise, Claire?
Sure. I think, yeah, like as curators, we have an innately trained ear into what sounds, for the purpose of working out because that's a primary function of how a lot of our stations get used, but like what is high energy enough, has the sort of sound quality of other major label music as well. I think that's a big part of it. The other part I think that's interesting as far as curating from a global standpoint is I'm always really attracted to the sort of geographical nuances of what is popular in other regions. Obviously we've gotten to see a lot of growth in Latin music in the US, and, K-pop and J-pop outside of Korea and Japan as well. But the idea that, if, global brands need global music solutions, and if you're going to launch in those territories, there's an amount of regionality that you want to sort of take into account, whether that's just gearing your sort of like hits or pop station so it reflects what is charting in that country, to also sort of some of the like historical nuances. One of my favorite examples is there's an artist, Robbie Williams, who's really popular in the UK, who did not become as big in the US. And, a 90s throwback station would be lacking without some of his music. So, that's sort of those nuances, I think, are what curators get especially attuned to in curating for global audiences.
Yeah, you mentioned a few things there, right? You mentioned what you're curating for and making sure that you're finding the right vibe, who you're curating it for, making sure that you're getting, artists and trends of that area. Stens, what are some other things that you are thinking about when you're curating for these global stations?
Well, I mean, yeah, the kind of the table stakes, if you will, that we have to deliver always is quality. So we spend a lot of time, we can throw around metaphors aplenty, but we spend a lot of time fishing, in our catalogs for, needle dropping digitally into tracks to figure out, like, is this going to work for the use case? And is this of a quality? Because there's a lot of production music that's out there, and there's tons that's generated that is not, remotely on par with major label music. There's a reason that a hit's a hit, right? So we have to really, strategically and thoughtfully sift to provide that, table stakes experience of, quality music that we can offer globally. And we have a lot of experience with that. And then when the fun begins is what Claire was getting at, is where we get to go above and beyond into, targeting regionally, being attuned and aware of differences. Mike, I think you have a really cool recent example that you did. We were looking for someone in our shop to curate an Australian station, and we handed it off to you. And it was just so much fun to see the results coming in. It was like far and away. It wasn't just like, Men at Work, Midnight Oil, it's In Excess. It wasn't just like the bands everybody, even in the United States, knows about. I mean, you want to talk about that a little bit, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to put together, and it's a lot of looking into, what's going on in Australia, right? So it's aside from the men at work, men at work of the world, it was like, okay, well, let's see what Triple J radio in Australia is playing, what Triple M is playing, what Nova radio is playing. Let's look and see who's won, an ARIA Music Award, like the Australian version of the Grammys, over the past few years, to kind of see, to make sure that people in Australia who are hearing it go, oh, okay, this is representative of what we hear here. I feel like I tried to, I don't know, mix, about 25 years worth of music that was well known in Australia, and throw in some new tracks from new Australian artists that people might not have heard yet. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good station.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, you're modest, but it's an awesome station for sure. And I think, we jumped right into it because we're down in the weeds. We curate, we love, eat, breathe, and sleep music. I get done at the end of the day and I pull out my music magazine. That's my hobby. So we're like always learning about music. It's part of the joy of the job. But before we even show up as a curation team, just contextually, what our company does is it offers a unified music system. And it's a big term, but it means that we handle it. We handle the licensing, which I referred to at the outset, which is really the biggest, hardest thing to penetrate. There's a lot of red tape around licensing. So we get that nailed. Our customers are indemnified. We're always, paying attention to what, if there are takedowns or things that change, we invisibly have a lot of experience of doing those swap outs and changes so that, we're always legally in the right. We have an incredible tech stack that's extremely flexible and adaptable to all of our digital partners, so that, we have a platform to actually service, the music. We're not just sitting here in a vacuum, like, you should play this, you should play that. Like, we have the whole goods here. So that's the second leg of this stool that we deliver, is the tech stack to our partners. And then the third is us as the curators. And what we haven't talked about, which might be interesting for at least a few minutes, is that, having done this now collectively for over 20 years, we've got a lot of data. So in addition to doing the research and the kind of gut level listening and the knowledge that Robbie Williams is a big deal in the UK, even though he isn't here, and we need to know those things. We can look at the data, and we do regularly. So it's a data-driven curation platform, that we're always looking at. Basically, for global, what it means is, like, we think that these songs that are not major label songs sound good. If we send them out there into the world and other people don't agree with us, we'll hear about it. We get skip rates and things of that nature. So through the process of, years of curating from these licensed catalogs, we really refined in, these tracks, don't use them. Like, these tracks are the hot tracks, and we can keep having more and more precision into how we do that. Claire actually she's probably most sophisticated with the data. You spend, I don't even know how many weeks at the end of every year looking at all the playback data. You have any additional thoughts about how the data piece fits into how we do the curation here globally?
Yeah, data is always going to be an important informing element. And it's sort of, I like using it as sort of like the, checks and balances of like, how well are we doing our job? Are people, our listeners finding that this is, resonating with like what they expected from a station, what they want to hear in this situation? Did the sort of demographic elements conveyed to us by our customers sort of play out in those same preferences? And I think the sort of wild card element is that we enjoy doing as curators is also being a part of that element of discovery. So we know there's a fine balance between making sure we're programming recognized and known music for people. Familiarity breeds popularity is sort of a known entity in the music industry, and we did a survey recently and found 83% of people want a mix of known music and new music, and so that's definitely a tent pole for us.
Yeah, when we don't have the data, we go out and find it. We run surveys. We ask consumers what they want. And yeah, I mean, keeping music fresh, right? I mean, we're talking global music strategy. Whenever we're talking music strategy at Feed FM, keeping stations fresh, optimizing your music is always a big piece of the puzzle. When you're going to launch music in a product, whether it's digital or otherwise, it's usually not a one and done thing. And what this team is really amazing at doing is going into every station every month, and optimizing, bringing in fresh things, bringing in new hits, new discoveries. So I think a global music strategy, without talking about keeping it fresh and bringing new things in, wouldn't benefit us.
And we have the experience to say too that having a global music strategy is essential. It is daunting. It is challenging, even for us. It is probably objectively the hardest part of our job, and it's necessary. The world is not, just the United States and Canada and Mexico, et cetera. And as the market is maybe flattening out a little bit in America, there are places where it isn't, right? I mean, we have partners like, just case in point, Barry's Boot Camp, the exceptional global fitness brand. We've been working for them for the last couple of years, and our colleague who manages them isn't with us, so I get to brag on his behalf. I mean, they wanted to do more globally. They had a new a digital component called Barry's X, and they needed to go global. And so, this colleague of ours worked his magic of like, well, here's the 3 stations that you need stateside that are major label, but you got to have an international station. So he spun up like a best-in-class global hit station, which is the absolute cream of the crop of the indie catalog we have, the high-quality production, a ton of the Feed Originals tracks that Mike has commissioned for our company, and they've seen the results, right? Like not only here in America where they're known and beloved, but also outside of the US, the brand is growing, and we're, it's part of the value proposition is that music's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. It's it's music-led growth. We're there to actually help push the needle for you with your customers, increase stickiness, and we collaborate with we're always looking exactly at the brand guidelines of our partners. It doesn't matter if I like Robbie Williams or not. If the brand likes Robbie Williams, again, to go back to him, I like Robbie Williams because I have a Scottish friend who tipped me off to him. But if the brand is like, we want, Robbie Williams, boom, we're going to use it. It doesn't matter what Eric Stensvag think about that.
Yeah, I think it's important to note too, like growth strategy, we're talking about it in a global sense, and that can mean applying it to multiple global territories. For some brands, it can also mean becoming hyper local and hyper specific to those sorts of needs. I'm based from the Bay Area, and I got to curate a station celebrating San Francisco. And so I got to sort of trace the history of music in the area where I'm from, from the sort of earlier like rock and roll times into Summer of Love into newer artists, and that is gonna resonate with people who are from here, and hopefully people visiting as well, as sort of providing a part of the picture and interactivity of being in a place. So
yeah, I mean, you can definitely look at a global music strategy as a challenge. Or if you have a partner like us that takes care of all the hard stuff, all the licensing, the technical stuff, making sure it's compliance and we're tracking plays and paying rights holders and getting every I dotted and T crossed, global music licensing can be a great opportunity, right? Like geography doesn't have to be a challenge when you're in your music strategy. When you have a partner like us, you can really lean into all of the great opportunities, whether it's getting hyper local or whether it's celebrating the music of a new territory that you're working in, the culture there, it is a great opportunity, and definitely for any digital business looking to grow. Yeah, I mean, a global strategy is got to be a part of that picture. Well said, everyone. Any closing comments? Anyone want to add anything before we log off for the day?
Well, I was just thinking, specifically along the points you were just sharing, Melissa, is that, we're biased because we're music curators, and, you're a music lover too. You're a musician, Melissa. I mean, however, music is the universal language. Mm-hmm. So, if you're not putting that into your digital experience, right, in addition to the visual component, I mean, that's a huge miss. And so the privilege that we all have is to integrate the absolute best, the most, contextually appropriate and the most demographically appropriate music that we can. So we're giving people the right variety of that musical, that universal language into their digital experiences.
Awesome. Well said. Summarizing it up, global music strategy. If you're a digital business, you probably need to have one. You'll want to definitely consider where your users are, what that means for licensing, how you want to choose the music, how you keep it fresh. And yeah, we're going to be biased, but having a partner like Feed FM makes it a lot easier. So if you want to learn more, check us out at feed.fm. Thank you. And please subscribe, tune in. We're back here every month with a new Inside Music Curation, talking all things music. And it's coming up to the end of the year. So next one will be our big end of year recap, talking about what happened in 2024 and what we expect next year. So thank you, Stens, Mike, Claire. Thank you for your expertise as always. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks.
Thanks.